In this video, we are going over how to get into the flow state of mind, what flow actually is, and why you actually want to be in this state as often as you can throughout the day. That's coming up next. Hi guys, it's Dave here from HeartSpace, where we are helping you to live the life that you want to live more and more every single day, whether we can do that in a small or big way. Now in this video, I want to go over one of my favorite topics, a state called flow. And the reason I want to go over this is because it is one of the most productive, pleasurable, and best kind of states you can be in on a moment-to-moment basis. So I'm going to be giving you a bit more information about what flow is and how you can get into it more often. So very briefly, I'm going to go over what flow is. Just in case you don't know, there are many videos that will explain exactly what this is. There's even a book on it by the founder of the state of flow. But flow is essentially optimal state. It's that state where you're in the zone, you're in the moment, and you're completely focused on the task at hand. If you play sports or do any kind of workout, lifting, physical activity, you've probably experienced this in some way, where you've just been in the zone, you've been in the moment, everything else kind of dissipates, and you don't think about anything except exactly what you are doing. I'm a soccer player, and so I've experienced this many times in game where I've just played out of my skin because I've just been so in the zone, so in the moment. Everything seems to work out. My reaction times are quicker, and all of that. And so based on what I'm going over here, you're probably thinking, wow, that sounds amazing. I want to be in that as much as possible. So let's go over how to actually get into this state. First and foremost is to set up your environment in a way that is conducive for flow, or that can trigger flow. Now this is more for those of you who want to get into flow or perhaps even a deep work state when you have some kind of work to go on. So what do I mean by setting up your environment? The main thing I mean is to remove distractions from your environment. Because one of the things about flow is you can very easily get knocked out of flow, yet it takes a bit of time to get back into it. In fact, I think on average, it takes about 13 minutes of actually focusing on the task at hand to get back into a flow state. Now, as you practice, you can, reduce the time it takes to get into it. However, you don't want to be distracting yourself, so you want to set up your environment in a way that doesn't allow for distractions. This means when you have work to do, you really want to make sure you don't have anyone around you who's going to distract you. You have none of your pets in the room or anything else that's going to distract you. Maybe you put on headphones or music or something else that's going to keep you on the task at hand. And one thing I found is really making sure if I'm not on my computer or I'm not going to be using an electronic to keep them away from me. However, if I am going to be on them to do whatever it is, to make sure I have only open what it is that I'm doing. But just make sure that whatever you're doing, you're not doing 5 things at once. You're focused on one thing. You have nothing else open. If you're writing something on the computer, creating something, whatever else it is, don't have your phone there and don't have other things that can distract you. So set your environment up in a way where things are not going to distract you and it allows you to get into the moment, to get into flow. Number 2 way to get into a flow state of mind is actually enjoying the things that you're doing. And that sounds very, very simple, but it is true that when you are enjoying things or when you're actually engaging in activities that you love, that it's much easier to get into flow. Because if you're doing something but thinking about something you have to do later, or you're just not present in the moment, you're not going to be able to get into flow state. Flow state is predicated on you actually being in the moment and present at that very moment. So if you're doing something that you love, it is much easier to get into flow. For example, like I said, I'm a soccer player. I think I said that, right? And so it's a lot easier for me to get in flow when I'm playing soccer. This is why following your heart and doing things that you have passion about is always the way to go, because it's going to be much easier to get into flow. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. And so what you want to do is just make sure you're doing things that you love. Each and every single day, find a way to love what you're doing. Number 3, and this is one of the main ones given in the actual book on flow, is challenging yourself. Now there's a little caveat here. There's actually a very sweet middle point or a sweet spot when it comes to challenging yourself. It can't be something that is too difficult to the point where you're messing up over and over again, but it can't be so easy that you can do it in your sleep. It has to be a happy middle ground where you're feeling challenged, but you're also able to do it. So for example, an analogy I used to give whenever I was teaching people soccer is if you come up against someone that is so easy for you to play against, after 5 minutes, you get bored. However, if you're the other person who is getting whooped over and over again, it gets very, very frustrating. So you want a middle ground where, let's say in that same scenario, you have someone at your level or perhaps even a little bit better, because this is going to keep you at your edge and keep you having to play your best to keep up with them. So you want the challenge to be something that may be a little bit above your current ability now, but not so much that you're just like, god damn it, I can't do this, right? And you get super frustrated. And really, the reason is because you're nowhere near at the point where you can even compete at that level. And this goes for anything else as well. So what you want to do is make sure you're just at that edge where you're challenging yourself. It's not too easy, it's not super hard, but it is challenging. Number 4 is to stop resisting and to actually allow the flow to come in. A lot of times we actually resist flow or resist being in the moment because we're so up in our heads. Flow requires you to stop thinking almost. You can't really be in the moment and flow with the moment if you're constantly analyzing and overanalyzing everything. Now, when you have a task at hand that requires analytical skills, well, within the context of that, obviously, you're going to need to use your mind and think a little bit, but it's going to be within the context of whatever problem you are currently working on. So that's absolutely fine. But for the most part, you want to remove resistance altogether. And a lot of times it's your mind that's going to come up with thoughts that resist whatever you're doing, or some other resistance is going to come in that manner. But really, if you can get yourself out of your head and again back into the moment, that's when the flow is going to happen. Again, I take us back to the analogy of sports. If you've ever played a sport, did you play better when you were thinking or when you were just in the moment? Usually it's when you're just in the moment, especially if it's a high-paced sport like maybe a basketball, like soccer, hockey, something of this nature. When you're thinking too much, you tend not to play too well. But when you stay in the moment and you allow yourself to flow and you allow yourself to kind of react to what's going on around you in real time, well, that's when the magic happens. And you want to take that attitude into anything else you're trying to flow with or induce the flow state in. Number 5 is one that needs to be developed over time, but it's have a flow routine. And this is being able to trigger flow. So maybe there are a few things you do, you set up your environment in a way, or you have this kind of practice that can help you get into flow. And it allows your brain to know and trigger in your brain, okay, we're about to get into the flow state. And this is how you get into flow much more quickly. Again, I said the average is about 13 minutes to get back into flow, but you can create these triggers that allows you to get into flow much more easily and much more quickly, even to where it could just be a couple of minutes. And this is going to be super valuable for a few reasons. One, it allows you to get into this optimal state really, really quickly. But 2, it means if for whatever reason you do get distracted or knocked out of flow, you can get back into it very easily. Again, bringing back to sports or bringing it back to sports and the analogy of sports, many high-level athletes are able to put themselves right back into the flow despite maybe making a mistake or having someone from the crowd distract them or whatever else it is. They're experts at staying in flow, and they have probably these triggers that allow them to get into flow very, very quickly if they get knocked out of it or whenever they step onto the field, the pitch, the court, or whatever else it is. Now, this trigger can really be anything. It could be you sit down in a certain spot where it's the only spot you do your work, and so flow gets triggered because it's time to work, and I'm just going to focus on this. It could be you do walk onto the pitch. For example, for me, when I walk onto a football pitch, a soccer pitch, it's very easy for me to get into flow because that's the trigger. Okay, it's time to play. It's time to go. It might be you get to the gym and that's your trigger, but by developing these triggers, you're going to allow yourself to stay in flow longer because that's just the environment you're in, or that's the trigger that allows you to be in flow. It's time to be in flow. It's also going to allow you to get into flow quicker, and it's also going to allow you to get back into it if for whatever reason you're distracted and move out of it. All right, guys, so that's been 5 ways to get into a flow state of mind. Let me know your favorite down below, or if you know of another one I did not put in here, you can let me know down below as well. Also, let me know of any other videos you wish for me to create, and I might create them. Who knows? I need some video ideas. We don't have many videos right now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well and that like button if you enjoyed this. Make sure you're inducing flow state as often as you can. It's just going to improve every area of your life, really. And I will see you in the next video.